Live. And your PowerPoint's up there.
Thank you.
Okay, so when we get to the PowerPoint, do I have to do something special to share it?
No,
Yes.
just share.
It's share.
Okay,
Hey, y'all.
thank you, Juliana.
Sorry for the delayed start. We were having some technical difficulties running around the building trying to find a camera that worked, but we finally got set up. We're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 3:44 p.m. Get started with this OR-22 Pedestrian Overcrossing Planning Study Advisory Committee meeting. For a little bit of context, we're, as you all know, having reviewed the agenda packet. This is a planning study evaluating a pedestrian and cyclist bridge over Highway 22 between Lancaster Road and Corden. And then today we're going to get started with some introductions before we jump into the meat of our agenda. So I'll go first. My name is Hayden Dettinger. I am a transportation planner here at the City of Salem. If we want to work around the room first, we can pop over here to Eric.
Okay, I'm Eric Deskimo. I'm the Assistant City Traffic Engineer. Salem.
Jared Trowbridge Dowell, leading the consultant team.
Julie Hanson, I'm over here, Transportation Planning Manager with the City of Salem. I'm sorry, our camera angle isn't wide enough to catch everybody.
I'm Chris Wachi. I'm with a firm called Cogito, and I'm working on the public engagement on this project.
I'm Shane Matthews, City Councilor.
Awesome. And then if we want to jump up to Brandon, we got you first on our list.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Brandon Williams. I'm Region 2, Area 3 Regional Planner. And yeah, thanks for having me. I'll be working and helping with the TSP work coming up. Should I pass it on to Ian?
Please do.
Hi, everyone. Ian Davidson. I am a resident that lives nearby. I also represent Salem Bike Vision, and I also happen to work for ODOT doing bike ped things, so that I don't think is why I'm here. I'll pass it off to Kiki.
Hi, Kiki Doman, Commuter Options Program Coordinator for Chariots. So all things bike ped, transit, Vanpool, all the things. Happy to be here.
And then do you want to Ray?
Go ahead, Ray.
Ray Jackson, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, Salem Kaiser Area Transportation Study, the MPO. So Joel.
All right, thank you. I'm Joel Swoboda. I'm the Director of Facilities for the school district.
Are we missing anybody?
I think we're missing one, but this is what we'll roll with for today. So thank you all for that. We're going to go ahead and pass it off to Chris and talk a little bit about expectations for this committee for the next period of time.
And I just want to interject. So I know that Councilor Nishioka is also on this committee, but she was not able to make it today. Was there anybody else specific?
Carl is all.
Oh, and we also had a Marion County representative because while this is not, well, it is in Marion County, and they have concerns about this as well.
And then I think SCAT's representative.
That's Ray.
Oh, Ray, thank you. Sorry about that. Good afternoon. Okay, we're going to talk quickly because we have less than 90 minutes to cover a lot. So quickly, I just wanted to talk about the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. Thank you all for agreeing to participate in this. This is one of 3 meetings, so essentially 270 minutes of where we get all your brains together in one room outside of review of documents. And the role and responsibilities of this committee is really advisory to the city on the preferred alignment and corridor. So the tasks will be to really give us guidance and feedback, to help refine the concepts, to look at the public input and consider that as we go through the refinement process. And one thing I would ask is if you, after we do the first round of public engagement, is to really help us with understanding what voices have not been heard. So we'll be coming back with an analysis to say this is whom we heard from and who are we missing. And then finally helping assist with the preferred alternative for this pedestrian crossing. I would like to follow up with you next week, and I find it very helpful to do a cheat sheet of perhaps networks that you have outside of your public world. That would be very helpful for us to make sure that we capture, whether that's a fly fishing club, whether that's a quilt club, or whether that's other dragon boat clubs. Those are important. So you'll be hearing from me. So for the next time that we have you here, we're going to do a pretty in-depth project overview. We are going to look at the evaluation framework, and I ask that as we're going through the evaluation framework, if you can really pay attention to what is embedded in the evaluation in terms of goals of what's really driving and what you'll be evaluating some of these alternatives against. And we'll talk a little bit about goals and priorities, and then talk about existing conditions. And should we have enough time, we will dive into the PI plan. If we don't, I will follow up with you next week and have some targeted questions for you. So with that, I'm going to lob it over to Jared.
Do you want me to open the
So
PowerPoint?
you go ahead and just hit share screen, Julie, on the Zoom window. So
I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing.
hover over the
Oh, somewhere.
and then
Okay,
down bottom middle.
okay, there we go, sorry. Share.
And under application windows on the far left.
This one?
No, down one.
No,
That's
okay.
okay, yep. And then you can hit the little button in the bottom right next to the magnification, yep, that guy, so. Perfect.
I think Hayden wishes that he was driving. But he's not.
Can you go ahead 2 slides? There we go. All right.
Can you guys all see this? Okay, just making sure.
So project overview, this project was identified.
What we see is the presenter mode, if that matters.
So Julie, if you down in the bottom middle, the little television screen that's half, that guy should be the one.
Yeah.
No, wait, not that one, sorry.
You click the 3 dots,
3 dots.
and then
Can you go back here?
We'll just do it in presenter mode, it'll be okay.
I don't think there's many notes, so.
Keep it rolling, yeah.
But now it won't let me do that.
Right.
What, you wanna drive?
You figure set up really fast, can I steal that mouse from you? Well,
Go get rid of the use presenter view, click thing, not there,
where?
back where you were a second ago. There, see where it says use presenter view?
Okay, well. I promise I'm usually better with technology than this. It's just been one of those days, apparently. I'm gonna try this really fast. Yeah, she downloaded that, right? Oh, I was thinking about that.
Go down and do it again over there.
Okay.
Okay, well, we might
Alright,
just
well,
have
we're
to
just
make
gonna
it
do
big.
like this.
Now where did they go? Want to sit down? Did you slide them off the screen?
I don't think I did, but I can go try and grab them and see if we can get, oh, there they are, okay. Is that what happened when you're going?
What are you guys, so what are you guys seeing, the full?
What do you guys see now?
Give it a sec. Okay, there we go. Now we're
Alright.
cooking with gas, okay.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
Presumably, okay. Can you all see the slideshow at this point?
Yes, this looks great.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, from the sweat, right? Now go forward 2 slides.
Okay.
All right, so quick project overview history. The project was identified in the 2012 TSP. Obviously kind of a barrier there for bikes and pedestrians from OR-22 Sandium Highway to connect the neighborhoods, as well as access to both schools and parks and shopping. The funding for the project is funded through Oregon Community Paths Program, I think just for planning and refinement study. There's no further design or construction funding currently identified.
And did you say when this was originally identified?
2012.
Yeah, it was identified well before that, but anyway, it's been.
That was what I found available on the
Yeah,
city
no,
website. Okay.
It was identified a long time ago.
It's a long time coming.
Yes, a long time desire project without a lot of definition.
So hopefully we can provide some more definition. So phases, I think, is intended to cover the phases of our current project. So this initial work that we did is kind of existing conditions along the highway and 5 corridors, which we'll see here in a minute. We'll then go to do some simple line alignments for a few of the corridors, and then identify 3 to do more developed designs, with the end goal of selecting a preferred alternative for corridor alignment. And then the last phase is, I think, identifying funding and grant opportunities for the project. So I think I'm gonna skip ahead.
Is this it?
Yep. So kind of through scoping, working with Hayden and Julie, we identified 5 potential areas or corridors where a crossing could be placed. The number 1 there is kind of adjacent to Lancaster Drive. 2 and 3 are kind of intermediate locations where there may be available access. Number 4 is connection between Bill Regal Park and Miller Elementary. And then 5 is studying a crossing adjacent to Court Road. Next.
Doesn't seem to want to do my down arrow, so I have to do.
All right, so evaluation framework. So we kind of worked on 6 areas after doing the existing conditions of 10 areas we thought could help evaluate the corridors and select the preferred alternative. So I'm gonna go through how these are weighted, and we're looking for your feedback on if we kind of hit the mark or miss the mark, or if one should be a little higher or lower. So if you want to go to the next slide. There we go. So the first one is environmental impacts. So relative magnitude of environmental and community impacts. Traffic impacts, we're looking at more long-term highway operations and local street network, depending on where those connections are, kind of how it impacts traffic in the long term. And then right-of-way impacts, how many parcels are being impacted? Are they just temporary or construction easements, or are they full acquisition or displacements? And estimated cost, capital cost life cycle, and also constructability. And then user experience is where we kind of captured safety and comfort for users, efficiency of the connection to where folks want to go to, where they're coming from. And then the last is stakeholder and public support. Go ahead, so you want to jot down some notes, maybe we can get through these tables. I won't read all the words. 5 is the best score, 1 is the worst. So we're kind of looking at, no regulated resources affected, looking at environmental species, wetlands, park impacts, environmental justice, things like that. Traffic impacts, as we talked about, no long-term operational impact would be the highest. 1 would be, if it's going to major impacts to how the highway interchange or local street network is kind of working after we're done.
And we can share these slides after the meeting as well.
So right of way impacts, so score of 5 would be the highest, so there's I think a couple corridors over here within the existing public right of way or agency owned property. And then some of them may have partial acquisitions or some may have displacements, as we'll see here. And then 5, estimated cost, so estimated construction costs in the lowest tier, straightforward constructability. So I think these will kind of be relative to each other as we kind of work through the alternatives. We can kind of assign a score based on kind of their relative cost to one another. And last, user experience. So I think high score would be a direct logical connection to multiple kind of high demand destinations and existing networks. Maybe 3 in the middle. It serves some demand, but there's maybe indirect routes or some out of direction travel. And then 1 would be maybe minimal demand based on where it's located and limited user benefit. Stakeholder and public support. So high score would be, some maybe obvious support from some of the stakeholder groups that we kind of engage with moving forward. Maybe this group, adjacent owners, corridor lines with the publicly stated priorities. Maybe a score of 3 is there's no clear consensus, or maybe some of the community's divided or not engaged. And then number 1 would be if there's significant opposition or political intervention or funding risk.
Carl's here, I'm gonna go let him in. And he couldn't log into the Zoom, and so he just came over.
Oh.
So the different weights there, I think our team thought user experience was maybe one of the more important ones, right? It's a direct connection. Are people going to want to use it? Does it connect the places people are coming from and going to? Cost, I think, is going to be a big factor. It's not funded, and costs are always a big factor in these projects. But they didn't want to influence it too much. Then kind of had environmental right of way and stakeholder support kind of at the same, and then the long-term traffic as the lowest. So I think after we get to the 3 kind of corridor line alignments would be kind of our first step in kind of scoring the corridors. And then as we develop further, we would score again after we develop maybe 3 in more depth, get more clarity on those 3 and hopefully select further.
It'd be a good opportunity to pause here to see if there are any questions about the weighting, about the categories, the criterion weight.
Yeah, right.
Thanks. Just a couple of comments on the criterion and the weights, I guess. For traffic impacts, it seems like all of the corridors are going to have minimal impacts just by where they are. And it might be better to split out user experience to have scoring for how the people experience the facility. Is it comfortable to use? Does it go through a narrow pathway like in, I think it's number 3 or 4? And then splitting out connectivity as a separate score to represent that these all have different ways of connecting the existing bike ped infrastructure, as well as serving different needs, or whether you're going to school or if you're trying to shop. And the second comment on those is that on estimated cost, it should include the right-of-way impacts. I think on one of the evaluations it was talking about there's possible houses being taken, and that's going to have some sort of cost that doesn't seem to be included in the estimated cost discussion. Probably is, but if it is, it should be noted because buying houses is going to add to the cost as opposed to just building a bridge.
So on that, I guess for clarification, so I assume the estimated cost would include any type of purchases you had to make right away, or is it just currently not allocate for those, or is that already included the estimated cost?
I think as we move forward, yes, that would be something we would want to capture. Yeah, for buying a property, then that's going to be a significant cost.
Yeah,
But
and
we can add those notes to the document as well.
yeah, and because the it's hard to think about estimated cost without knowing, it's the easy one is you're buying houses, and then depending on which corridor you pick, your structure is going to be totally different. Corridor one's going to have a total different structure than corridor three, just based on the need to get up to whatever height you need to be to get over 22, the landings, etc. So.
Other comments? Just I want to pause for a minute and ask if you could introduce yourselves.
Oh, hello everyone. If you don't see online. Hi. Carl Lund, I'm the traffic engineer of Marion County.
Carl. Question about, so with the ranking, like 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times the percent, I mean, is that how you anticipated, or is it like, or like the cost, like, if it's $10 million, $9 million, like what's the, how do they compare to each other? Is it like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and that's like the best, or because that would affect a lot as far as
I guess
the proration of the relative value, I guess.
in my mind, I had, it would be like 5 times the 15%. And so they would sum up, and the max you could get would be 5 total, but I don't.
Okay, so it's based on it's priority, like the 5 is 100%, 4 is 80% basically.
That's up for tweaking at home. I mean, depending on how we add up the scores, I guess I wanted to come back to your cost question home. Because I think that is maybe important. It's like, I guess I wasn't envisioning the lowest cost would be 5 and the highest cost would be a 1. I was more thinking that we would kind of weight them relative to each other. So maybe the lowest cost is 5, but then the highest cost could be like 3.2 just based on the ratio. So it's not completely wired to skew it too much.
And I think the estimated cost, if I'm remembering correctly, we're sort of going through this in a couple of tiers. So there might be some, we're not gonna have as refined costs for all of these. We're hopefully gonna get down to a smaller number, whether that's 2 or maybe 3, can't remember, that we would have more detailed costs, and we're not gonna invest the time if something's obviously not a no-go.
You all may have noticed at the end of the existing conditions memo, that the recommendation is to remove either corridor 1 or corridor 5 from consideration, which kind of falls under this idea of whittling down as we go, so that we're not spending a whole bunch of time, effort, and energy considering all of these different alignments when we can look at some of them and say that's probably not the best idea. Based on the existing conditions memo 5, and also some things that we've heard from community members up to this point at things like the equity roundtable, is there's some concern around the connection number 5 that relies on Gordon Road. Not a lot of pedestrian facilities for it to connect to. Gordon Road's a little scary to walk on. So that kind of falls in with the whittling pieces down as we go, in the not having necessarily refined cost estimates for all options. Right.
I do like the user experience is the highest at 25%. Because the worst thing that could happen is to build this and have no one use it. Really low usage.
Well, to follow up on Carl's comment, I guess my bigger meta question is who is this project serving? Is this serving people going to school, or is this serving people going to the shopping? And if you're going to shopping, corridor 1 is the most direct route. If you're going to school, corridor 1 is not the most direct route. So you have two different clients essentially that might be using this facility, or there's definitely people who would use this facility for different uses. So I think that's something that I didn't see in the notes, and I didn't have time to look to see what the split might be, but it seems important to figure out who's going to use this.
Joel, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I guess similar to Ray's question there a little bit, but can you go back to, there was a slide on connectivity, I believe it was one of the one of the pieces on this. Yeah, that user experience, because I think this speaks to what Ray just talked, but from a school district perspective, and I don't have these numbers in front of me, but I can certainly get them. The connectivity to our school, based on the makeup of that neighborhood, is probably for a very small number of students. Based on the makeup of the neighborhood to the south of Highway 22, and I can get the number exactly what it is, and our projections all the way out to 10 and 15 years for what that will look like. So to weigh that out back to raising of, who is it serving and who would it most serve? Our experience with schools in general is, that's an elementary school, K through 5. And typically we don't see parents allowing their K1 or 2-year-old or second grade students walk to school unless it's across the street. So that even limits the usability of something like this for a school connection for school purposes to a smaller crowd. That's a little harder to measure as far as who's going to allow the kids to walk and who's not. But that's our experience, is it's much less at the lower grades.
Additional thoughts on the evaluation? Okay, so just a quick recap. The idea is to split out connectivity and to look at the estimated cost of right-of-way impacts, including if there are acquisitions. Joel, you're going to get some spatial projections or geographic projections of students. And that's the 10 to 15 years out in the future.
Sorry, I muted myself there. Yes, we have those projections.
And I think we'd want to look at both elementary and middle school, because we also have Hauk middle school up that way.
Okay. We're going to move on to just a general discussion right now about how this is articulated to the public. What are the goals of this project? Not specifically the engineering, but the overall end product. And we just took a running start at 3 things that really jump out. And I think a lot of it is really, the first 2 are reflected in the user experience, but safety and connectivity, and then the third, community support. So I just wanted to open it up about other goals to, if these are the right goals, or other goals that we might consider in articulating to the public the purpose of this project. Or do these right now capture them?
I think another priority needs to be the ease of use. It's a known pattern that I mean, I think because of how big 22 is and how big the barrier is, there'll be more cognitive desire to use this than in other locations, but it's not an uncommon thing for a big bridge like this to get built and then pedestrians figure out a way around it because it's a pain to climb up and a pain to climb down. And so the just really, I think it could be could be summed up, say a desire line, or something like that.
Which gets a little bit of connectivity, but it's a nuance of it.
Yeah.
It's very much
Yeah,
a nuance. The user experience is huge for this.
Ian, do you have something?
Yeah, I just chime in and say that I think that there would be public health benefits from this, based on looking at the communities that are served here. Well, this would be true everywhere, but being able to walk or bike more just in your daily life obviously has some both physical and mental health benefits. And I'd also add that I think that there's an economic development angle here. These two neighborhoods are obviously islands unto themselves, but the one to the south is adjacent to the Mill Creek. I'm forgetting the formal title, but the city and Sedcor have invested a whole lot of money activating that with economic development. And so if you can get folks, whether it's one of the 1,000 workers at the Amazon site, being able to get there safely through a different mode, I think that's going to incentivize more people to consider that as a job opportunity.
That increased the walk score, I mean, potential of the area. Okay.
Absolutely.
So safety, connectivity, community support, public health, economic development. Other thoughts? And I'm sorry, I should have prefaced this that we're going to listen to this discussion and then we're going to craft something and send it back out to you to see if you've captured it well.
I've got a suggestion, but not necessarily saying it would need to go on the bullet list. But my question for discussion would just be, where does accessibility fit into here? Is that loaded into connectivity?
And initially talking about it, we thought it was there, but it could be pulled out a bit more as separate. And I think it gets a little bit to Shane what you were saying about ease of use.
Who was saying that?
I think I just
Carl.
I'm sorry, I just kind of had my own little technical difficulty. Carl, what you were saying about the ease of access or ease of use. Okay. Let's move on, please.
Existing conditions. So we looked at a lot of things for all 5 corridors, but kind of binned them into 5 areas. Environmental conditions. So I think I mentioned this, kind of looking at Endangered Species Act, wetlands, parks, historic and archaeological resources that are maybe known, and then physical site characteristics. Utilities, looked at, I think, mostly city utilities, not franchise utilities. Right-of-way impacts, then Oregon highway. So I think if you look forward, the corridor 1, no mapped wetlands in the area or section 4F6F resources. ESA listed species reviewed with no anticipated effects. There would be some stormwater documentation needed, and for resource compliance would be required here. Physical site characteristics, it's located within a high volume interchange with multiple ramps and turning movements. There are existing sidewalks present. There is a new path connection there in the bottom corner that was constructed somewhat recently. But there are no dedicated bicycle facilities on the Lancaster Drive Bridge over the highway there. Utilities, there's a city water main near OR-22, abandoned sewer main near Lancaster, and possible utilities within the bridge structure. And then for right of way, I know that kind of goes outside the yellow lines there, but I think it would be almost entirely within ODOT right of way. And I don't think we would expect any private parcel acquisition in this corridor. And then for Oregon Highway Plan goals, it provides a crossing opportunity, which is a plus, but it does route folks through a busy interchange connection on either side. I guess any questions on corridor one or me?
Ray's hand is raised.
So I was, so is this corridor adjacent to the existing overpass or is it offset? Like, I mean, it looks like it's offset and trying to go through a lot of ramps, but
I mean, I think
that it also included, it could be adjacent, you know, attached to.
Yeah, I think it could be directly adjacent, or potentially attached to the bridge. So I think these were, we tried to make them kind of precise areas, but I think there's a little wiggle room there. Moving adjacent to the bridge, I think could be a potential option.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question then? So in that concept of being adjacent to the bridge, if that was the path to go forward, I know that this hasn't been vetted out from a cost perspective, but I have to assume that would be a less costly proposal than building an entire new infrastructure on the opposition to just attaching to the bridge that's currently there, or am I totally wrong?
I think it could potentially be a lower cost option. I think, it would have significant ODOT coordination on this corridor. They all will have some, but I think, if you're attaching to that bridge, would have more.
Ian?
Yeah, this question is probably for both corridor 1 and corridor 5. I'm trying to get a sense of the structures that are already there. How old are they, or maybe better phrased, is one of them likely to be replaced in, say, the next 10 years?
I would say no to replace in the next 10 years. I'd have to go back and look. I think, I want to say they're both like 50s era bridges. So,
sorry, what did you cut out there for a sec?
1950s era bridges.
Okay.
So I would expect they would both be around for 25 years at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, attaching to an existing bridge always has that risk of, what happens in the future.
Thank you.
So corridor 2, moving a little to the east. So there's a kind of right where the arrow of the 2 is, there's a long driveway, and I don't know if we thought there might be an option to connect through there, but this is just kind of another area we looked at. Environmental consideration, it overlaps a previously filled wetland. Field verification would be needed to confirm that. No mapped 4F park resources. There would be ESA review that would be needed as, in further design. On both sides, there's local residential streets with low traffic volumes and existing sidewalks. I think we didn't want to draw the corridor completely connecting to the streets and potentially raise alarms from folks that we were picking their parcel, so we kind of left it open on both sides of the highway.
But it has to connect to the street.
Has to connect to the street.
So, yeah, and I will say that this alignment, a long time ago, this was, I think, the first alignment that was suggested, but that was before this housing development on the north happened. And the idea was, I think if you connect up here, I think it connects to Connecticut, it goes directly to Hauk. But it would require property acquisition, displacement of homes.
Yes.
On both sides.
Yeah.
From a likelihood of use by middle school students, this one looks to be the most likely to be used of the 5.
Just direct.
So middle school students can go to a center point in that neighborhood on the south and then cross and get to this.
So I don't think either local street has dedicated bicycle facilities, but I think they're low stress, environments on the streets. There's multiple water and sewer mains crossing the highway at this corridor and probably would need to be relocated. Includes ODOT right of way and multiple private parcels. So multiple displacements with this one. Does provide a direct grade separated connection aligned with mobility and safety objectives.
Can we go back to that one?
Yep.
I don't know if it makes all the difference in the world necessarily, but pretty much directly across the street about where the lower left corner of this is, there is a lot right in a general neighborhood in that area that is currently owned by the City of Salem Housing Authority. It appears to be maybe vacant, with no building.
Good to know. Should keep it vacant.
Can't tell from this map which one it is necessarily. I'm looking at it on another service, so.
Okay.
Next slide. So corridor 3, if there's a suggestion at some time to have it connect through, I think there was a belief this was maybe a stormwater treatment. I think from our research, it looks like it's actually designated as a stream or creek. But obviously would have, minimal right of way impacts. There are mapped wetlands. I mentioned intermittent streams. There would be a fair amount of environmental work to do here if you wanted to put a connection there. We envisioned it potentially connecting to the park, kind of the bottom right section potentially. So I would have 4F review and permitting requirements. It's a fairly direct connection between the park and the school.
Which school?
Miller is right there to the right. There are existing sidewalks and paths at the ends of the corridor, but there's no traffic interaction where it connects. Similarly, there's water and sewer mains near OR-22 and within the park area that may require some adjustments. So we have ODOT right away, City of Salem property, potentially Salem. I don't know if this one would have district based on where it's connecting. And potentially one private parcel, and I don't know if those properties actually go to the center of the creek, because if they did, then it would be probably a dozen properties that you'd be getting acquisitions from.
But this would be a long corridor without a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah, so I think user experience here, you're in a long, probably fenced corridor. Remains to be seen what lighting is provided by the project, but currently there's no lighting there. So.
From a direct line perspective, I imagine this is without that discomfort along the corridor, without consideration of that, but it looks like that would have the most even use between the two schools, just from a direct line.
Okay, we're ready to move on?
Right, so this one was more of a, direct connection between the park and Miller Elementary. I think on the north quadrant there is where there's some mapped wetlands.
Here?
Yep. And then I think also potentially the bottom corner of Ford, where another one starts to the further east, and we'll talk about here 5. Connects, to the park, potentially require Salem Kaiser School District property, maybe some private parcels. Similar to the last one, there are sidewalk connectivity on both ends of the connection. Supports a direct connection between destinations. I think we were extending the boundaries of this one depending on how the alignment would need to be to get up and over and potentially where it might connect on the north side of the highway. Yes, Joel.
A couple of questions on this one. There's the large appendage on the upper right of this. What was the intent of that? They were crossing the highway.
I think depending on how we go up and over the highway and maybe where there was a desire to connect into the school, I think on the far left corner, there's a pretty narrow strip of land between the parking lot and the back of those houses. So I think we're just kind of exploring those areas for potential connection options, so.
Okay.
On any alignments or connected anything yet to kind of understand the footprint, so.
Would this be a better version of 3?
Yeah, and I guess, from that we were involved in some conversations around this a few years ago when I'll say about 2/3 of this, the left half of it, were the only thing that we were involved with. We have, just to be clear and forthcoming with you, we have serious concerns with any pedestrian pathway that lands on our property without some really strong considerations around the safety and security of our buildings, both during the day and at night. I notice on this group, doesn't appear to be any representatives of law enforcement or anything from that side, but we experience a lot of activity on 46th Place, which is dead ends there in front of our school. And we have reason to believe that adding a pedestrian pathway from our property or immediately adjacent to our property may only exacerbate that. That's, once again, others we need to weigh in on the reality of that, but we certainly have concerns about a pedestrian pathway landing our site.
Yeah, and I think we, applying for this grant, you guys, we were very much aware of that, and that's one reason we really wanted to do a planning study so that we could fully flesh out concerns and options and mitigations and the associated costs and benefits. So because as I think we talked about before, what is shown in our transportation system plan is generally in this location, connecting the park to the school, but that is at a very rudimentary, just thick line. Yeah. And so we wanted to really have the opportunity to look at a broader scale on recognizing those concerns.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying they're insurmountable. It's just, want to make sure this whole group understands we would want to know a lot more about that if this plan continues, if it were to become one of the top 3.
Yeah, and I think your point about law enforcement not being here is a good point. We will definitely, as this progresses, make sure that we make connections with our, police counterparts and get their input as well, both in terms of location, but also if, as we're identifying any, potential mitigations for security, whether it's here or one of the other locations. So Ian?
Thanks. I'm looking in the packet that was sent, and on page 14, it has a map of, and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this right, but I think it's saying that Highway 22 is a designated bike route in the Salem TSP. Am I interpreting that correctly? Because that leads into my question.
What page are you on?
That is correct. It was
Page 2.
Yeah, I think 14 of the agenda packet, but page 2 of the existing condition though. Or, you know, you're talking about this map.
Probably. Yeah, I can't see, but yeah, looks right.
The answer is yes, that is what we found and triple checked.
Oh, no, I believe it. I'm just making sure. Okay. In which case, I think one consideration that we need to have is how a bridge or a crossing would tie into a future, what I'll call a parallel path along the highway. So if that's in the long range plans, like you can cross here, but then what's the plan given height restrictions to then head east-west when there's a future connection? So I just wanted to raise that. I don't know if there's a solution right now, but I'd love for us to keep that in mind.
I would want to go back and look and triple check your triple checking. But also, I know, make sure that we've looked at the Highway 22 East Expressway Management Plan or Facility Plan that ODOT developed a number of years ago, because that had a little bit more refinement on the bicycle stuff, and I think your firm was involved in that.
Right.
But just to, if it's a bike route, it doesn't mean they're going to put in bike facilities, because 22 already has wide shoulders, so it might be considered a bike facility that way without any future separated paths. But yeah, I think CSATs and Oregon 22 East Expressway plan would probably should be reviewed.
How many other people know what CSATs is? I do.
Sorry, do I have to define everything?
Yes, that was Southeast Salem Area Transportation Study circa probably 2009-ish.
9, 6, 8, I don't know. After a
Anyway.
couple of decades, I lose count.
Yeah.
Carl, I think you had a comment earlier on this corridor 4.
Oh, yeah, so my comment is it looks like it could be a more effective 3. Okay, version of 3, because rather than going behind the houses and connecting through the little drainage easement or street or whatever that is, it's just a direct from the park to the school. So.
And to agree with Carl, I think, the same concern the school district has, the same concern every homeowner is gonna have, is they have this corridor going behind their house, no matter which one you pick. 4 seems to be the only one that actually doesn't impact a huge amount of residents. So to me, it seems like 4 so far has the most practical ability, either that or be 1, because it already does that. So.
One of the things that during the couple of years it took us to get through the scoping of this and the selection, that I became aware of was that there are some height issues here where it's not something, you look at a map and you can just draw a line straight pretty easily. But when you get to the different elevations that are actually out there and the need for, ramping and all that other stuff, we might be surprised that it may not be as direct as we would like.
The highway's a little perched above the surrounding lands, and so then to get up and over the highway and connect down on either side may have some longer approaches than you may first envision.
And then in respect to some of those elevation issues, not that I think it's a great idea, but often one has the least of those, especially if we're connected to that bridge, because those elevations, for the most part, already exist, but that's getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to move on?
Number 5, yep. So number 5, I think that the idea was potentially to leave options open. Are you potentially having something directly adjacent connected to the Horton Road bridge over the highway? Are you having landings and connections to the shoulders? Or are you also doing paths along the highway, maybe connecting back to the park or school? So just kind of leaving options open as why that's maybe a little bigger corridor. That area to the south of the highway is the mapped wetland site, so there would be some permitting required there, stormwater documentation. Or widening the bridge and adding impervious area. Physical site characteristics, you know, I think Corden is a high-speed roadway, particularly at this location. No sidewalks, narrow shoulders on the bridge, and I think off either end, there's poor connections for peds and bikes.
But we have plans for better connections.
Yes.
But no money.
Doesn't appear to be very many city utilities out here. There's some power and gas, but no city utilities. I think it's primarily or all within ODOT right of way. And we wouldn't anticipate any private right of way acquisitions needed. And I think you know, provides a great separated crossing, but it does rely on connections along high speed roadway potentially if we connect directly to Corden.
This would be the most regionally used option and the least locally used option. There's a surprising amount of ped, bike, scooter, electric bike activity here, just from my travels. And so it would increase that regional connectivity, but I don't think it would be effective for providing connectivity from the neighborhood to the schools. In terms of how parents would feel about it and the desire line would feel out of the way.
And Carl, to be clear, when you talk about regional connectivity, that would be from connecting directly to Corden Road, right? Versus back to the park or the school.
So I already see a number of people commuting on Corden on like scooters, bikes and stuff. And so they would shift to get off of the bridge because I can tell they don't like it. And so
are they I guess traveling on Corden connecting back, I mean, you don't know, but I guess like coming back to, I think, I don't remember who commented on, you know, the Mill Creek area, or people, you know, using that to get to work. Potentially, yeah.
I see a lot of Amazon people.
Yeah.
There, and so definitely, and I think your Amazon employees are your citizens who are fairly likely to try to find the cheapest mode of transportation possible to get to work. And so those scooters and bikes are a really good option for them. And this is the worst point for their community.
But it's the most direct for them if they're taking those modes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go into public involvement, any questions about corridor 5?
So do you want to check the chat real quick? Looks like there's a couple comments in there.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me check the chat. I don't know that I can handle.
If you pass over the keep going up, go over the run your mouse over the screen sharing thing, I think is where it was. Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody found.
Oh.
Recommended for a multi-use path to be constructed along OR-22. Can you guys see this, or are we not sharing this?
Well, they can probably.
Oh, you
see
can
the
probably see it in the chat, okay.
Easier than we can.
So who found that? Oh, Ian, good job. Cause that's where it came from.
So long.
Before we move off of this, did you want to touch on, if folks didn't have a chance to read through the whole existing conditions, the comment about number 1 and 5?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hayden mentioned it kind of as we got started on this, but I think trying to find it on my screen here. So I think all corridors have generally a lot of the same environmental baseline conditions and constraints. We're in a relatively concentrated corridor. And I guess coming back to one of the comments of who is the user, you know, who's the client, I guess our initial assessment was corridor 1 and 5 may stand out as being less desirable due to out of direction travel. I think thinking back to like the neighborhoods and schools and shopping, not necessarily thinking about the, maybe regional traveler. And then, we've got number 1 or 5, may not balance kind of everything related to connectivity and safety and as well as some of the other corridors.
Were you asking for thoughts on dropping either 1 or 5?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or 2, 3, or 4, if people have got
Yeah.
strong feelings about dropping 2, 3, or 4.
We're trying to be most efficient with our budget, our limited budget.
Right.
Yep.
1 seems the least effective at implementing any of the goals. From my understanding.
Was that Carl?
That was
Good,
our,
Carl.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with Carl. I vote for removing number 5. I think that while I see the regional movement, I also know that Salem and Marion County hold out hopes of improving that overpass or eventual interchange, and thus would provide all the connections necessary. I like number 1 just because it feeds people directly to Winco and all the shopping there. And that seems to be better fit for the 55 and over community that's right south of all the city or there. Thank you.
So Ray, from a ped and bike perspective, it's not actually, it's significantly worse than 2. Because there is a, I forget that road, but it's the road that goes from 2 to the little line of 5 trees.
Yeah, I know. That was another comment. On the map, you should show the little cut through
There.
into the back of.
does it
Yeah.
actually function?
I drove it yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, that shows, but from the the not 55 and over community seems to have like 3 entrances, and so 1 is to the north where Julie is pointing, but Lancaster also allows you to get to transit and other things. So 1 and 2 tend to be similar enough, and then it gets into experience and all those other conditions.
I'm wondering if, based on the discussion that's been had today, if removing 3 makes the most sense, with the concerns about less eyes on the pathway, with the concerns that Councilor Matthews brought up about people having, a new pedestrian pathway through their backyards. It sounds like 1 and 5 have got some things that, multiple parties have got interest or concerns about. But 3 seems more like, greater concerns with less benefit. Ian?
I was actually going to say 2, to remove 2 simply because of the property acquisition. That seems.
We each want to delete a different one. Well, to me, that means we chose really good on the option.
That's good debate.
You guys are gonna love this one because I was gonna say I actually like 2 the best because I think it connects best to a middle school where kids are actually going to be walking to and connects to shopping. So.
Yeah, I sort of like to, I recognize the challenge of having to buy a house and displace somebody for a path is something that can be very hard.
Yeah. And
But I was just say, but in a way, doing that versus trying to squeeze a path next to somebody is actually maybe better.
No, my concern on 2 is less the buying a house part. I think that's whatever, someone's gonna get good buy out for their house. Congrats for them. I think the bigger problem I have for 2 is we're at that point, we're drafting a whole bunch of traffic into this, right into these neighborhoods. So if the goal is connecting these 2 neighborhoods and that's kind of the premise, great. But if there's no safe ways for people to actually travel pedestrian wise on Lancaster right now, and that's kind of what I'm hearing, is that the whole reason that 1 doing on there is because there's not really a safe path to be able to get across the Lancaster side to the Winco. I guess my fear is that we know we have a large transient population in the Winco area. And I'm worried that we're going to draft all that into the neighborhood and cause a bigger issue for the neighborhood as a whole. And so that's my only fear, honestly, with doing something in 2 or 3. 4, if we have a larger transient population that kind of moves into that 4 area, it's not preferred, obviously, but it is definitely not going to be impacting the neighborhood quite as much. 1, that seems to me like a logical place where you would have people on foot and bike traffic that are needing to get to shopping, needing to get to those things. I don't know enough about 5 to know, like, I mean, I think it makes sense what you're saying that you have the regional traveler, but I don't know enough about like how much traffic you're actually getting.
Well, the thing about 5, sorry, I just wanna, so for those of you who don't know, or those of you who know, Marion County recently, with participation from Salem, completed the Cordon-Kubler corridor study, that basically went all the way from I-5, and Kubler all the way around onto Cordon, all the way up to like Hazel Green. And we specifically looked at this Cordon Road area for what could be done. And so there was a concept developed for tacking on, I think, a pedestrian overcrossing of the of Highway 22 here. So it seems to me that maybe we don't want to do a lot of revisiting of that. It may come down to more of a, do we want to do anything, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or just leave it at no build and, stick with that concept? I don't know.
That was a good reason to remove that.
But Joel, you've had your hand up patiently.
So a couple of thoughts on it. I think, when we talk about too and buying homes and stuff like that, I certainly don't love the idea of displacing people out of their homes, even if we buy it. As I say, we, whoever, as far as the cost of that, for a project of this size and building a bridge over a highway that's 160 feet wide, whatever that thing is, the cost of buying a home will be nothing in comparison. I mean, it'll be minimal for the project cost. So I don't know that it drives the project cost much. I think when we start talking about traffic as far as getting to like Winco and to shopping, just to kind of one place we deal with foot traffic is there's that neighborhood just to the, I'm going to say up and right of Miller Elementary, so just to the right of the number 4. A lot of that neighborhood and further even up to the right-hand corner of your screen actually walk down through that grassy field right above the 5. They cut through our fence as soon as they get to the number 4, where there's a locked gate, and they cross our property to get to Winco to go grocery shopping. So there's a lot of foot traffic, I'm going to say roughly east-west there. No, some of it goes all the way down to the highway and doesn't cut our fence. But oftentimes they end up on our property. We lock the gate because we end up with people on our property during recess. So just thinking of the amount of foot traffic in this general region, or amount of folks in this general region who are heading grocery shopping, things like that, and they're doing it afoot, I think we definitely would see an increase to that by opening up something to the south, which kind of is a plus and minus to the number 2 or number 1. Number 2, yes, it gives a more direct route for that. It also dumps a lot of people into neighborhoods, as was mentioned earlier by someone else on the group, which would be a shocker for them, I'm certain. But just thoughts. 3 came up quite some time ago. We talked about that, and I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell with what resources I have in front of me. Those lots appear to go to the center line there, but there's also, when we looked at this a few years ago, I'm pretty sure that was an easement for a storm easement. It was unclear whether there was actually a storm pipe in there, but there was an easement, I believe, identified through that existing. That's kind of what led us to that. It does make a very long enclosed corridor for sure.
Yeah, we dug in. I think it's actually considered a creek.
So.
Okay, we're coming up closely to 5 o'clock. And I think this conversation is a barometer reading of probably from what feedback from the public we might receive. I did want to say the first thing out of the gate for this project is for the public. There is a website or webpage up and running. We will be developing a project fact sheet, so it's clear information. I don't believe this is on the website yet, is it?
This is the study.
Yeah. And so just having worked on a few projects, I would say for the stakeholder advisory committee to keep these sites to ourselves right now before, because it can get out ahead of us. I think anyone going back through the TSP can see some of the potential sites.
Say because this is a public meeting, all of this material is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Public.
Absolutely. I'm just saying right now, it might be helpful not to say which one's favored over. But we'll get more information. I think that's fine. All the information is public. What I did want to highlight, which has been touched on by a few comments, is we are doing a survey that will talk about the purpose, talk about the goals, as well as destinations, current destinations how do you reach those destinations? Would you change those destinations if there was an alignment? And what are those destinations? So we'll be asking about that, as well as promoting upcoming public information or public involvement options, and then ways to get involved and stay informed. So with that, we will be sharing the proposed questions in the survey out with the stakeholder advisory committee. And I think there is a lot of information for decision making to develop.
And we have a pretty quick turnaround because we're really trying to get this survey out before school is out. And we'll, I'm probably speaking for somebody else, but we will probably try to reach out to you, Joel, to see if we could get any help, distributing it, because this is a survey where we don't necessarily need the entire city of Salem to respond. We really want to focus on the areas that this serves. You're muted, Joel.
Yeah, those neighborhoods and that region, yep, I agree.
And you have something to add before you wrap this up. I saw you had your hand raised.
I just had a question about Chris's comments about not talking about this in public. Did I see correctly that we're live streaming this meeting?
We are.
Yeah, it's my point is that I think I just want to have accurate information out to the public. And so perhaps we'll have a project fact sheet that'll have all the information, so it's consistent messaging was my point.
Can I make one other
Thank you.
small suggestion, just as someone that doesn't do this on a daily basis, or even really visually know exactly what to conceptualize on what this is going to look like when you do the public aspect? And I understand it would be far too much to actually create concept drawings each one of these areas, but just some version of a concept drawing. This is the scope of what kind of bridge we're looking like, so that it's not this concept in my mind of it's a pedestrian bridge, it's going to be very skinny and just go over straight across, and yet in reality I think this is probably a much larger project than the average consumer, the average citizen is going to think about when they're thinking, oh, that'd be convenient for this to be a real quick connection from my neighborhood. They may not realize the impact of this is actually a very large scale project that will be larger in your neighborhood. And so it doesn't mean you have to connect it anywhere in here, but just something to say this is the kind of bridge we're conceptualizing. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. I'll give that some thought, Travis. We can potentially show.
Maybe there's a way to show 2 or 3 that exist elsewhere in the state. Because they do have very different looks sometimes.
Yeah. Also the cross section, what do you expect is, no matter which alignment, it's gonna be certain width, right? I assume.
Right, yeah. I don't think we've decided on that yet, but I think that's
kind of
important too.
The whole emergency vehicle be
Okay, any final comments? We'll be following up with you next week on quite a few things.
I guess one point I will make is I am betting that at least one of you, Ray, has got more detailed comments on materials that were sent out than what you got around to sharing here. So if you all have more comments, annotated materials, whatever, if you all have my email, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll make sure that we get those considered and added to record as well.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you.
Question on follow-up meetings, are they on the schedule and I'm just missing it? Or?
Yes, that's we kind of are rushed right now, but the next meeting will be in October.
Oh.
And then the final one, it's a little under a year for the stakeholder advisory committees in March. The survey, as you see, will be May and June, and Joel, I'll be reaching out to make sure that we capture, and also with hard copies for the online survey, so for people who don't have computers, and work with the school district on that. And then we have an online open house in October at the same time, and we'll have an in-person open house. And so we'll be doing heavily outreach along that for those tasks. Community presentations, you have a list in the PI plan of who we're proposing to reach out to. I think it would be really helpful to get your input on what are the non-public groups that we possibly might be able to do some community presentations to make sure, as Julie said, within this project area, that everyone's very well versed in this project and there's no misinformation of the process. And then finally, as we noted, the city council and planning commission meetings would be towards later summer of next year, and they are the final decision makers on this.
Yeah, and I will work, well in advance of the next meeting, but when I get some the numbers pulled together on our demographics as far as student counts go, I can get those to you. You can distribute them to the group as you feel, through the process. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time. It's 5:01, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And you can anticipate to hear from me probably sooner rather than later about scheduling the next meeting. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And the only problem is that,
So now stop sharing.
well, okay, you're gonna take some break. Juliana didn't tell me how to stop.
I think we're the